We want our kids to go to school and feel safe. We want to go to our synagogues and feel safe. We want to go to groceries and malls and feel safe. We hope he wakes to a changed world with peace, unity, and love for all.
The heartbreaking message from the daughter of a machete attack victim, this as police investigate more crimes of hate against Jews right in our own backyard. And the papal apology after a woman aggressively grabbed the Holy Father's hand.
Haitians are celebrating their independence from France, but they're looking to truly secure their status in this country in 2020. I'm Jessica Easthope, and that's ahead.
Plus, a musical prodigy is changing the way you may hear Mass this Easter. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Emily Druby. We begin tonight with the alarming rash of hate attacks against Jews and a heartbreaking message from the daughter of a victim of the machete attack during Hanukkah. First, the details on the latest incident happening in Williamsburg. Another attack against the Jewish community, this time on New Year's Day. Police have charged Jasmine Lucas with an attack on a Hasidic man. They say the 24-year-old took the victim's phone and punched him while yelling anti-Semitic slurs. It happened here in Williamsburg near Broadway and Gary Street. The incident leaving locals afraid.
Right now, after so many things going on, I always look back on over my shoulder.
Of course we are frightening, children are afraid to go out of the street alone.
This is just the latest in a rash of anti-Semitic attacks in the area. Police are looking for the men in this video wanted in connection to two attacks on Hasidic men in Brooklyn on Christmas Eve. This just days before a gruesome machete attack at a Hanukkah party at a rabbi's home in an Orthodox community in Rockland County. The suspect, Grafton Thomas, is accused of injuring 5 people. One still remains in a coma. Thomas is charged with a hate crime for that rampage. Police releasing this video of the moment Thomas was apprehended. A witness calling it a miracle that more people were not in the home for the attack.
If he would have come in 10 minutes earlier, the house would have been packed. I don't see a way that we could have run. There was tables and chairs and everybody was sitting.
This coming just 2 weeks after a deadly attack on a kosher supermarket in Jersey City, killing 4. Religious leaders are condemning the hate. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio of Brooklyn saying, "The Catholic community of Brooklyn and Queens stands with members of all faiths in condemning these anti-Semitic attacks against people of faith. Hate like this has no place in a civil society. Today we are reminded it is better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. Let us be that light as we pray for peace and practice tolerance today and always." New York officials promising to step up protection for the Jewish community. And on New Year's Day, Governor Cuomo visited with Jewish leaders in Williamsburg, promising to increase state police patrols in Orthodox Jewish neighborhoods.
Everybody stands in solidarity with you.
The family of the victim of that machete attack in Muncie released a photo showing the one man still hospitalized with devastating knife wounds to his head. A warning now, this image may be disturbing to some. 72-year-old Joseph Newman remains in a coma and on a respirator. His family says doctors are not optimistic that he will ever wake up. Today, Newman's daughter made an impassioned plea.
We hope he wakes to a changed world with peace, unity, and love for all. Guys, I'm begging you, if you are watching this, please stand up and stop this hatred. It cannot keep going on.
Meanwhile, just hours after the machete attack in Muncie, a gunman opened fire in a church in Texas, killing 2 worshipers. The increasing frequency of attacks has faith leaders and law enforcement grappling with how to protect those who are most vulnerable. FBI crime stats show that incidents in churches, synagogues, temples, and mosques increased almost 35% between 2014 and 2018. In Rome, Pope Francis ushered in the new year, advocating for an end to violence around the world. Speaking to thousands gathered at St. Peter's Basilica for the first Mass of 2020, the pontiff had a special hope for women and a more peaceful year. Tamara Lane has the full report.
Songs of faith filled the chambers of St. Peter's Basilica as Pope Francis ushered in the new year with a message of peace that a more united world will be possible through the empowerment of women.
On the first day of the year, we celebrate this union between God and man that began in the womb of a woman. In God, there will be forever our humanity.
Wearing blue, the color of Our Lady, the Holy Father celebrated the solemnity of Mary, Mother of God, using his first homily of the new year to call for an end to violence against women.
Women are sources of life, yet they are continually offended, hurt, raped, forced to prostitute themselves, and to suppress the life they carry.
Calling it akin to profaning God.
Every violence inflicted on women is a desecration of God, who was born of woman.
Affirming the importance of treating women with dignity around the world.
So let us begin the year in the sign of Our Lady, the woman who wove the humanity of God. If we want to weave humanity into the web of our own day, we must begin again with woman.
The first day of the year also marked the 53rd World Day of Peace. Francis saying that in order to attain a better world, the dignity of everyone must be at the heart of it, calling for women to be fully associated with the decision-making process.
Woman is the donor and mediator of peace and must be fully associated with decision-making processes.
The pontiff did not, however, comment on the issue of women priests. Tamara Lane, Currents News.
Pope Francis would later apologize for an incident that happened moments before Mass began. While greeting visitors in St. Peter's Square, a woman took hold of the Holy Father and yanked him towards her. The woman continued to grip the pontiff, causing him to slap her hand. During his Angelus prayer the next day, the Pope said his reaction was wrong.
Tante volte perdiamo la pazienza. Anche io. E chiedo scusa per il cattivo esempio di ieri.
The identity of the woman in the video is still unknown. Joining us now with more on the papal incident that went viral is Christopher White, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. Thank you so much for being here, Christopher.
Great to be back with you, Emily.
So now this isn't the first time Pope Francis has had a minor incident while being among the masses. Can you tell me more?
That's right. In Mexico in February of 2016, the Pope was again in one of these similar situations where sort of he was being mobbed by people and someone latched on and pulled him over, and in the process he toppled over on top of a gentleman in a wheelchair. And the Pope got rattled and he said, "Don't be selfish." And so you could tell the Pope, you know, he's 83 years old, and in these moments, he's very wary about falling and also inflicting harm on himself and perhaps others.
And now, what has the public's general reaction been to this latest incident?
I think most people have recognized the fact that this is an 83-year-old man who has suffered health problems, has sciatica, is often uneasy when he walks, and has a fear of falling. So I think they've been, you know, understanding. The Pope himself was the first to say he lost his patience, and I think most people are willing to accept his apology.
And does this incident reveal anything about the Pope's security detail? Can we expect any changes moving forward?
Yeah, you know, last December, there was a shakeup in the Vatican security personnel. So Domenico Gianni, who was the longtime guy who walked alongside the Pope, stepped down. So the folks walking beside him this past weekend were new folks. So in a sense, the way that a college football coach is probably, you know, spends time watching replays over and over to see what would happen, that's probably happening at the Vatican right now to say what went wrong, what do we need to do going forward so that we can prevent this thing from occurring.
Christopher White, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, Emily.
More than 200 lawmakers are asking the Supreme Court to reconsider Roe v. Wade. 166 House Republicans and 39 Senate Republicans signed an amicus brief saying the landmark abortion case is unworkable. The lawmakers are writing in support of a Louisiana law that would require doctors who perform abortions to have admitting privileges at a nearby hospital. Critics say that is designed to force abortion clinics to close. The Supreme Court is set to hear oral arguments on that in March. The United States is facing big challenges around the world in the new year as President Trump claims a trade deal between America and China is near. Uncertainty still remains in other countries. Nadia Romero reports.
As we clean up the confetti ushering in the new year, President Trump ushers in a new trade deal with China.
We're very excited about trade. The China deal will be signed probably on January 15th. We put out a notice today, and I'll be going at some point to Beijing to be with President Xi.
That trip in the midst of ongoing anti-government protests in Hong Kong. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for the protesters outside the U.S. Embassy in Iraq tells CNN they've asked everyone to withdraw Wednesday. U.S. Special Representative for Iran, Brian Hook, says it comes after strong leadership from the Trump administration.
Secretary Pompeo is in pretty regular touch with the Iraqi leadership. We're pleased that the Iraqi security services have come in and done what is necessary, and so our diplomats are safe, and so is our embassy.
Another international place of tension, North Korea, where leader Kim Jong-un says promises made at this summit last year aren't being kept, and he's now threatening new strategic weapons.
He made those commitments to President Trump in exchange for President Trump agreeing not to conduct large-scale military exercises. We've lived up to our commitments. We continue to hold out hope that he'll live up to his as well.
Back at home, the pending Senate impeachment trial also looms over President Trump and lawmakers. In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero reporting.
Now to the presidential race. Julian Castro is out of the 2020 presidential campaign. The Housing and Urban Development Secretary under President Obama and former mayor of San Antonio announcing today on Twitter that he was dropping out. Castro rarely polled above 2% and failed to qualify for the past two debates. His departure follows that of Kamala Harris, another prominent candidate of color. Meanwhile, the remaining candidates are hitting Iowa hard. Coming up on Currents News, it's the first battleground state that could give someone a big boost up. Also, there's some hope in cities battling gun violence, new statistics and programs making a big difference. And celebrating Haitian Independence, why this year's special Mass in Brooklyn is so significant for the community. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. It's been 216 years since the island nation of Haiti declared independence from France. But here in Brooklyn, as Haitians ring in the new year, they're prayerful that immigrants from the country will seek refuge and comfort in the United States. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story.
January 1st. It's a date that holds significance for people from every country. But for Haitians, New Year's Day means much more than just a change in date.
We come to celebrate the Mass with our family and to thank the Lord.
Every year on New Year's Day, a different church in Brooklyn hosts hundreds from the diocese's Haitian community for an Independence Day Mass. Like always, this year's Mass at Holy Family Parish in Canarsie was lively with a program of upbeat music and words of inspiration. But unlike years past, the future is uncertain for many Haitians living in the area. Temporary protected status for Haitians has been extended to January 4th, 2021. But pending further court decision, that could be the last day Haitian immigrants are afforded protection from going back to Haiti, which has suffered under political corruption and natural disasters. Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio has been saying Haitian Independence Day Mass for the last 15 years.
We also pray for the immigrants, especially those of TPS, trying to get them some permanent status here. That's very important. Now the political situation is unstable, so we try to help whoever we can.
Catholics in attendance say their first prayers of the year are for those who need most to be welcomed into the country.
Majority of Haitians who come to the United States, they come for a better life.
After Mass, hundreds continue the celebration with a feast, and although there are many delicious options, they come for a Haitian Independence Day staple.
So this is the subjument, the first meal that we have in for the month.
Church leaders say as 2020 begins, they will work to maintain a safe place for Haitian immigrants and that for those in need, the door is always open. In Brooklyn, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
At least 8 people, including 5 children, were killed when the Syrian army launched missiles that struck a shelter for displaced families. The school building was being used by those fleeing from Russian-backed bombing campaign. Now to the 2020 race, more than a dozen candidates hoping to clinch the Democratic presidential nomination are in Iowa. The Midwestern state holds the first contest in the race for the White House. That's next month on February 3rd. The candidates will be crisscrossing the state, and reportedly there are close to 100 events scheduled between now and the caucuses. And the numbers are in. President Trump's campaign took in $46 million in the final quarter of 2019. Some say the fundraising was boosted in part by a backlash from his base against the House Democrats' impeachment efforts. The incumbent now starts the election year with over $100 million in his war chest. On the other side, Bernie Sanders leads the Democrats in fundraising. He took in over $34 million in the last 3 months of last year. The Sanders campaign says that comes from 1.8 million donations, averaging about $19 per contribution. Mayor Pete Buttigieg was a distant second, bringing in $24.7 million in the fourth quarter. One of the most divisive issues on the ballot, gun control. President Trump has often criticized how some cities approach fighting gun violence, and well across the country, statistics on violent crimes may offer some hope. In some cities, it's a very different story. Omar Jimenez explains what some local officials are doing to turn the tide.
The earth shall soon.
While mass shootings at times leave the country in disbelief, in places like Baltimore and Chicago, gun violence is a grim part of life.
What people think of as traditional policing has to be much smarter, has to be much more focused.
Former Los Angeles Police Chief Charlie BECK is now the interim police superintendent in Chicago, a city that ended 2019 with a more than 10% drop in murders for a third year in a row, and down more than 30% since a spike in 2016 that saw more killings than New York and LA combined.
What are some of the questions that you get about the city of Chicago, about crime in Chicago, and how do you answer those questions?
To be brutally honest, you know, it's still not safe enough. 500 homicides is, even though that's a nice milestone, it's way too many.
But it's not just policing. Even hospitals are trying to break this deadly cycle, taking the time to sit with shooting victims and evaluate the direction of their lives.
We use this unique opportunity to really drill down with people on not only their risk factors, but their hopes, their dreams, their emotional experience of being injured.
The goal is not to see them again.
The goal is not to see them again, ever.
They're among the tactics being used in cities across the country, trying to change what has become, in some places, an unshakable narrative. Often among the highest murder rates of big U.S. cities, New Orleans has made progress, seeing its third consecutive drop in homicides last year. But St. Louis, which had the highest murder rate of big U.S. cities in recent years, saw an increase in homicides compared to 2018. And Baltimore ended the year with the second most homicides they've had on record, just under 350. Cities like New York and Los Angeles didn't even hit that mark, and they have more than 5 times the people.
We can talk all day about what to do after someone is killed, but we must also have a hard conversation about why the perpetrators of violence have no regards for human life.
And in Washington, Congress approved millions for federal research into gun violence for the first time in over 20 years. Federal and city efforts meant to go hand in hand at the dawn of a new decade.
I know it seems difficult when you're in the middle of this, but I have nothing but the most positive belief in the outcome of what we're doing here.
7 cities, including Detroit and Baltimore, are taking part in the Department of Justice's Operation Relentless Pursuit, an initiative aimed at combating violent crime. Still to come on Currents News, getting ready for Three Kings Day here and abroad. And we'll meet a musical prodigy and hear some of his original compositions for Mass that have been blessed by the U.S. bishops. And please check out one of the latest features in the tablet, the Our Diocesan Family page. That's where you can send in photos of your family receiving certain sacraments such as baptism, First Communion, confirmation, and marriage. For more information and to submit your pictures, go to thetablet.org/Our Diocesan Family. We'll be right back. In Spain and some Latin American countries, and right here in Brooklyn, preps are underway for Three Kings Day. The holiday is Monday and marks the Epiphany, when the Magi followed a star that brought them to the baby Jesus. The feast will also be celebrated at the Brooklyn Three Kings Day Parade, marking its 23rd year anniversary. Finally tonight, there's a Mozart in the making in Arlington as a team from Vienna composed some new Mass music that has been officially approved by the U.S. bishops. The 4-part Mass setting is meant to invoke the joy of the Easter season. Let's listen to the young composer as he explains his work.
Yeah, so my Mass setting is entitled The Mass of the Resurrection. It's a very, when I sat down to write it, I wanted to really make it so that the Eucharist is a very special thing, and you know, we get to receive our Lord each time we go to church, and so I wanted the music to be fit into that, and so I wanted, you know, to use things sequences that weren't always used, and you know, make it a little different than something that I usually do. So I started playing the piano when I was 4 years old, and I've done a lot of different things since then, but since about 4th grade, the education path that I've really taken in the piano has been in theory and in the creative side, and improvising and trying to take music from that view. It was very expressive and can express a wide range of emotions, which is really why we have music, because you know, we want to connect to the emotional side of someone, and that's something that I've always loved about the piano, and being able to just go and kind of take any idea and be able to put that into music, and you know, really send a message of the joyfulness of the resurrection.
Oh, what an inspiration. That is Currents News. I'm Emily Druby. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.